I'm José Tolovi from Great People and from Healthy Place to Work, Brazil as well.
Yeah.
And I have the pleasure to have here John Ryan, the creator of the concept, of the idea of the company, everything. And maybe we could start before we come to the best part of it.
Yeah.
So I know you've been telling this story a long time, but maybe you could quickly say,
Sure.
Why do you have this idea of a healthy organization?
You know, I think, Talovi, it's funny how life happens, and there's moments, and you don't realize at the time that they're pretty monumental moments in your life. And for me, it was just sitting down in New Orleans and Jeffrey Pfeffer from Stanford University starting a presentation, and that presentation, I didn't know, but it would change my life. And hopefully change the lives of a lot of employees across the world and organizations across the world. So basically, he turned around and he put a slide up and it said, workplaces are killing people. And worse, nobody cares.
And this was when?
This was 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
So we're 10 years.
Yeah.
And we're still having the same problem.
Same conversation. Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, you know, I was sort of always by nature a little bit cynical. And I was wondering, you know, is this overplaying it? But then he started to give the data around suicides, unfortunately, that came about by people under pressure in workplaces, cancers, heart attacks, and all the bad things about that bad workplaces can give. Yeah. And also probably the standout one where he talked about in Japan, they have a word called karoshi, which is death by overworking. And the amount of people who are dying constantly from that is just crazy. So at that moment in time, my question was, can we do something about this to make work healthy, right? Rather than have work killing people. And that's basically where the whole concept came from.
Okay, good. And then you decided to create a concept to deal with it, or a company?
Yeah.
Or
So
what
the
came
first
to your
thing,
mind?
the first thing we really wanted to do was sort of say, maybe somebody is already doing this, right? So we looked all over the world to find out. And what we noticed was in different countries, there were different models doing different things. And back in 2014, when you talked about health, primarily you were talking about physical health, right? And when we then sort of said, okay, if nobody has created a global model, methodology that organizations can actually certify against, why don't we do it? So we developed and really looked at every aspect of this. And we came across the work of a guy called Aaron Antonovsky. And it was really interesting because Aaron, who unfortunately has passed since, but he actually did seminal work with regard to women who were in concentration camps during the war. And what he did was he tracked them afterwards to see could any of them live normal lives. The vast majority couldn't, right? But he went back and revisited the data. And what he found was that 28% could actually lead normal lives. And he was intrigued to find out what made those people so resilient in the face of ultimate horror. And what he discovered was that the world saw health as the absence of illness. So if I don't have a disease, if I'm not ill, if I'm not sick, I'm healthy, that's it. He called that a pathogenic orientation. So pathogens are diseases. And the whole idea there is we want to avoid diseases, we want to avoid illness, and we reduce our risk factors. And in COVID times, we wear masks, we stay at home, and all that. So it's all about what I don't want, where I don't want to go. What he found was that the women, those 28% of women, didn't have that orientation. They had a different orientation. And he coined the phrase a salutogenic orientation. So the genic is the genesis, the origins, and saluto is your health. So what actually are the origins of your health? And what he found was that these women became stronger physically, mentally, socially, emotionally, and spiritually. And with regard to the spirituality piece, what was really interesting was that what he found was the people who were able to cope with an extraordinary situation of chronic stress. You can imagine it in a concentration camp and just horror. What he found was the factors that made the difference was having a high degree of comprehensibility, manageability, and meaningfulness. So what that means is that when you're hit with a chronic stress moment, which is kind of out of your control, it's really intense, and it lasts quite a long time, what matters? Well, number one, can you get your head around what's going on? So can you actually comprehend what's happening and hopefully predict a little bit where it's going to go? The second piece is, can you actually manage through this moment in your life? And what that means is that, number one, are there people in your life who you can turn to? Maybe even just to vent, to talk about what's going on. But maybe at a moment in time, you may not be able to think for yourself. So it's handy to be able to have other people around you who can do the thinking for you. Or maybe it's a financial issue and somebody can help you out financially. Or maybe it's a life issue. Whatever it is, the question is, do you have a network of resilience around you that can allow you manage through? And the final piece was meaningfulness. And basically what he identified was that life is kind of tough for an awful lot of people. And if you don't have a sense of purpose and meaning in your life, you're going to find it difficult to, why bother, right? And that's what's really important. And what we obviously discovered was that leaders in workplaces have a hugely important role in terms of those things. So the comprehensibility piece, if they share information with people, they help people see where things are going. And it helps to reduce the uncertainty that people feel. With regard to that manageability piece, if they have a data flow so that they know what's going on with the people in the organization, where are the pressure points, what are the strains and problems that are there today, which may become bigger if they're not dealt with straight away. And if those leaders can jump in and actually resolve those issues straight away. And the final piece is, sometimes people forget why they're doing what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And it's a leader's role to actually remind them that, what you're doing is really important. So they connect them.
Otherwise, yeah.
So it's
Just
that sense of that that's really important. So that's where we sort of said, something, we need to build a model that is salutogenic by nature, that encompasses all of those elements. And we need to be able to present that to organizations and say, this is what you need to do. And if you do this, your organization will thrive. And I think what's really important now is what we're seeing with deployments all over the world is that this is about creating high performance, both for the organization and for the individual, but based on sustainable practices. So anybody can have high performance. If you put people under massive pressure and all that, you can do it today and tomorrow, but then they keel over, right? That's not sustainable. So the question is, can you actually do this in a sustainable manner and deliver high performance? And the answer is yes. And the answer is in that book.
Okay. So here's the book. So when did you publish this book? Original, the first one.
Actually, it's a year. It's a year.
A year now. So now we have it in Brazil.
And now you have it in Brazil.
Not yet.
Just about.
Or just on sale. It's already on sale.
Yeah.
Right. So here's Organizações Saudáveis. Crie empresas e pessoas de alto desempenho. So high performance people. So you were saying that people thriving. But what about high performance that you mentioned here?
The thing that if you talk to many organizations, they kind of say, oh, we do things to do with wellness, right? But they see wellness over there, separate, and high performance over here. And they it's like as if they think it's a trade-off, that you kind of maybe give a bit of wellness there for, being able to actually sort of say, we'll ease off on people over here. That's not how it works, right? The ones that get this right are the ones that understand you have to integrate those two things. And you have to understand that if you want high performance, you've got to actually focus on the health and well-being of your people in a very strategic way.
And how do you explain it in the book? Is it just theoretical or?
No, so the art of this is about bringing it alive and actually talking to different organizations that are doing things in a different way. It's interesting, the first translation of this book is in Korean, and I visited a workplace in Korea, and it was interesting. They said, we don't have a gym in our workplace. We have a workplace in our gym. And basically all over this workplace, there's equipment. And so this is the whole idea about recovery. So this idea that, you work, and then collapse, that doesn't work, right? No sports people, they don't do that. They understand that you do intense performing. It could be 90 minutes.
But you have
and then
to
you
balance.
stop.
Yeah.
And then you take a rest for 10, 15 minutes. Now, if there's, a little area that you can go to and lift a few weights or do stretching exercise or flexibility or whatever, that's what you do. And it's the integration of those things into your work life. Because it's really clear to us from looking and studying workplaces that work can be the worst part of your life. It can make you really, really ill and sick. And in the worst case scenario, it can actually kill you. But on the other side, work can be the very best part of your life. It can deliver all of the resources that you need to live a great life, and it can also deliver a sense of purpose and meaning so that you feel good about what you're actually achieving with your life. And that's what we're trying to teach people, that this is possible. It's not only possible, it's a philosophy. And if you embrace it, it's win-win. It's win for the people and it's win for the organization.
Hey, and we're saying Korea, we're saying Brazil with the launch of the book tomorrow, and these, let's say, Ireland, Korea, Brazil, very different people,
Yep.
very different approaches,
Yep.
very different ways of thinking, very different beer.
Right? Yes. Yeah.
So how these things apply? Say this is universal, or
And
or
that's
there are
exactly.
adaptations?
That's the word I was going to use. It's the universality of these concepts. Everybody, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, at times will be anxious. They'll be fearful. It's kind of part of the human condition. But the question is, do you have the skill set to manage through those moments of anxiety? Do you have the coping skills? And basically, those people, these are things that you can learn, and they should, I think, be taught to people in school at the earliest age, because they're the things that, if we don't have emotional literacy, if we don't know the words to describe how we feel, that's going to be difficult, because it's really important that, anger and frustration are completely different things. So how you actually deal with both of those emotions is very different. So what we find is people don't actually understand emotional regulation. These are kind of fundamental things. So oftentimes what you'll find is that you go to a speech and somebody says some good stuff and you write it down, you go, oh, I must do that. And then there's another one and another one, and then you forget, right? And what we're saying is we're making it easy for you, because we brought it all together and we put it into a framework. And the framework is there for you to actually use every single day in your workplace. It reminds you of the things to
and the framework
measure.
is here in the book.
The framework is there in the book. It tells you what to measure, what to monitor, and how to manage your workplace and your workforce.
Just wait for this. You're going to edit.
It's plain sailing.
So there are drones coming.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the heart and the rush time for the airport.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But John, you mentioned the universality of this, and how many countries do you represent with examples in this book?
Oh golly, I think there's probably about 12 or 15.
12 different countries.
Different
cultures.
Different cultures. So, for example, we've now translated the whole system into Arabic, because the first organization in that part of the world to get certified as a healthy place to work is the Dubai Police Force.
Interesting.
And they've really embraced it.
But this applies to the police as well?
100%. 100%.
Because this is a very stressful job. I can imagine. I don't know, but really.
But that's the reality. It's really important. Like, we were dealing with a court service, right? And some of the court clerks, the presenting issues for them were two. Number one, they had to listen to really difficult testimony in murder trials and rape trials and the like. And the other piece was that the judges oftentimes, finished at 3 o'clock or maybe finished at 7 o'clock. So the people themselves didn't know what their day was going to be like. So they were out of control. So there's two concepts there, right? One is work control, which is really important that we have autonomy around that. So the conversation had to happen because the judges just didn't even think about the court clerks. But now, because of the evidence and the data, They were realizing this is an issue, and I don't want to lose my court clerk because I like my court clerk. So they said, okay, so now if they are thinking of running on late, they'll call the court clerk and say, is it okay? Are you good with that? So the other piece then you'd say, well, you know, the testimony in a court case, you can't change that. And you're right, you can't. So we sat with the people and we said, so what would make it better? And they said, if there was even a room that we could go to just to catch our breath. So we introduced the concept of recovery rooms where they could go and they decide what recovery looks like to them. So they decide what's in that room.
So this is new.
This is new. This is completely new. And that's what this is about, is capturing the issues that actually could potentially make people sick and actually turning them into a real positive. And that's what this is all about. And all of the stories, all of the things every single day that we're seeing across the globe is people actually sort of saying, here's a tough issue. It's really tough. How are we actually going to solve that? And it's by collaborating and understanding the concepts that are in this. Because at the end of the day, the 4 pillars that we talk about here are purpose, mental resilience, connections, which is social health, and physical health. So you got to deliver on all of those.
I see. And could you put any Brazilian example here too?
There is, yeah, there is.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding us. But there's a Brazilian almond producer in the north of Brazil. And again, they have this absolute passion for caring for their employees. And I think that is something that is really important because, you know, there's what we call halo statements. And there's 2 that are really important. And they relate to the leadership of the organization. Number 1 is, do your people authentically believe, really believe, that the senior leaders in the organization actually care about the health and well-being of their people, right? If that's a really high score, generally what we find is the employees care about the organization and will deliver for it. But if that's a really, really low score, as in the employees don't believe that the leaders care, well, funnily enough, they don't care about the business. So it's a 2-way street. And the second one is whether or not the leaders are role models for healthy behaviors. And it's funny, yeah. And it's not sort of, you know, sharing a picture of them at the weekend on a cycling trip or something like that. It's actually how you run the organization every single day. What are the worst behaviors that you allow in the culture of the organization? So it's really, really important. Those are 2 phenomenally important statements. And I'd sort of say to any leader, just even ask those 2 statements of your people. And if you get them going in the right direction, that's going to be good news.
Okay. So we can say that the book is arriving, but the concept is already here. In the country.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. The concept is here. And you know, we
have a healthy place to work.
Yeah.
Brazil,
like yesterday, we were in Rio and we were with Evulse. And they're one of the first organizations to be certified as a healthy place to work. And it's fantastic just talking to the leaders of that organization. And they are excited to actually go even further on this journey, because what we're doing now is implementing a program called Stronger, which is, you know, pulsing the organization on a regular basis. And this is important because one of the things is that if you have a constant flow of information from your people, you can then have trend data. And that trend data acts as a risk prevention tool, so that you can see very clearly when the trend is going in the wrong direction, and you can jump in before it's too late. So that's really, really important. So, you know, if one of your most talented employees turns around and says, I'm resigning, it's too late. It's too late. So you've got to figure it out when you get back the data and you sort of see, whoa, these people are struggling with, you know, the demands that we're placing on them or whatever, or they're not getting the development, or they're being bullied by a boss or whatever. Been able to jump in and fix that issue before it's too late. That's important.
And John, you mentioned certification. So the company is certified.
Yeah.
What does it mean? So how is it important to our companies here in Brazil?
I think it's really important because nowadays, and particularly with the younger employees who are coming into the organization, they're not like us, right? they basically, you know what I mean?
Or
Like,
fortunately.
we sacrificed ourselves, and we just took it that it was the way work worked, that it could be a bit miserable. They're actually not willing to work in a miserable workplace. They're not willing to let sort of work cause them to get sick or mentally ill. What they actually want is a workplace that supports them to be healthy and thrive. So it's really important.
Want to be healthy.
They absolutely, they prioritize it. Their question isn't how much are you going to pay me?
How does this relate what people always say, quality of life? That's the word that people say. I want more quality life.
But they do, and work can be a quality experience. So it's not about working less, is kind of, that's if you view work as the enemy or the difficult thing, right? That oftentimes is because you're doing the wrong work that's focusing on your weaknesses rather than your strengths. If you're doing brilliant work and you are getting into what they call flow, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's work on flow, which is when all of your talents and skills come together and you get so invested in the work that you're doing that you lose sense of time. And you just operate at a completely different level. And you see Messi, the footballer, and you kind of going like, how can he see those passes? And there's just another level of performance that is beyond our understanding. And how regularly do you get into flow?
Maybe Neymar.
Oh, sorry, I used the wrong example, did I? My apologies. Yes. Okay. Well, as an Arsenal fan, so we have three Gabriels from we have three Gabriels from Brazil that are actually wonderful. So yes, Gabriel Jesus, Gabriel Martinelli, and the like. Yes. So,
but not forgetting. So the certification, how does it help?
So because you can then turn around to the world and say, we're certified, we're a healthy place to work, that is a shortcut so that people can look to your organization and go, I don't have to go and do a lot of research to find out what it's like to work here. This has been externally validated by us, an independent organization. I can be sure that when I go into that organization, I'm going to have a good experience.
Yeah, great. And in Brazil, what will be Healthy Place offering?
Oh, there will be a multiple level of offerings. Andre is our man on the ground here, along with yourself and others, obviously. But in terms of, I think what's slightly unusual about our organization is that we're not actually saying there's one size fits all. What we're actually saying is we're allowing organizations do is create their own engagement with us. So how many, do you want to use the H30, just the 30 statements? Do you want to use the H66, the full insight? Do you want to pulse your organization on a quarterly basis? Do you want to then support it by doing webinars, maybe once a month or whatever? It's about adapting to your organization needs, but still at the core of it, it's data, it's evidence, and it's your ability to respond to the presenting issues of the organization. No, absolutely. And we were blessed in this book that so many wonderful thought leaders, like Dave Ulrich and Jeffrey Pfeffer and Jim Blair, and the list is endless. There are wonderful people who have actually given their time and their expertise and their knowledge in this. And that, to me, is worth its weight in gold.
Great. Okay, so Organizações Saudáveis. Healthy place to work. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Cheers, Lovey.